Welcome to this introductory video from LSE Life on how to read. Reading effectively at university takes time. It is not something that will come naturally to everyone. But with the skills we outline in this video, you will be on your way to conquering those reading lists and feeling more prepared for seminar discussions. Here is an outline of what this video will cover. First, we'll look at the importance of setting reading goals before you start with your reading. We'll discuss how you don't have to read everything, but what you do read, you should read strategically. We'll look at why and how you'll need to take notes and discuss potential ways to keep those notes organised. Then we'll look at the benefits of collaborating with others when you read. And lastly, if you've tried to keep up with your reading for a few weeks and still find you are behind, there are several sources of support at LSE. We'll look at how you can get some help with your reading when you need it. Academic reading is a particular type of reading. Not like reading on the beach, in a plane, your favourite author's latest book, a Guardian editorial, your friend's blog. It is purposeful. Why are you reading in the first place? What is the purpose of looking at the text? Your purpose is shaped by what is relevant to you in your course. It is also selective. You don't read every word or sentence, paragraph, section or chapter. You select only the best bits. And it is active. You actively interrogate the text to get what you want out of it. There is no duty to go through every page, paragraph, line and word. And this is why it's important to set reading goals. What is a reading goal? Well, before you even begin to read, you should establish for yourself why you are reading a text. Simply saying to yourself, because it's on the list, is a bit different to because it's on the list and it's marked as essential. This is where reading goals are beneficial. A reading goal helps you to focus on relevant bits of information that you want to find in the text. You will probably find that your reading goals for lectures and seminars will be different to goals for an essay or assignment. So on the next few slides, we'll look at these separately. Firstly, let's look at reading goals for lectures and seminars. Here is one way you might formulate your reading goals. Let's look at a typical outline you may see for a lecture. This lecture is on identity, brand and reputation. Pause the video now and have a quick read through of this outline. What reading goals might you have from looking at this outline? This lecture outline sets out very clearly what you as a student should be able to do after attending the lecture, the seminar and doing the reading. So we know that the particular focus of Lecture 5 is to contrast organisational identity with branding and reputation. How will it do that? Well, through looking at what is a brand, what is corporate identity? What is reputation? Why are they important? And how are they interconnected? What are the relationships between them? How are they linked? How are they distinct? Okay, now let's imagine you were also writing an essay on this lecture topic. Your lecturer may provide you with multiple essay title options or only a few. Either way, you can take the initiative by looking at past exam papers via the LSE library and see what typical questions on that subject have been asked in the past to help you in your formulation of reading goals for writing your essay. So what might you pick out here? Well, you could look at how is corporate reputation a foundation for public relations? Identity, image and reputation. How do they work together? Is corporate identity really the quintessence of an organisation? Who supports this? Who disagrees? And identity versus culture in the change process. Which seemingly has the greater beneficial effect? Again, who supports this? Who disagrees? So now you could also add further goals, such as understanding if corporate reputation is a foundation for public relations or is it something else? How do reputation, identity and image work together? Is corporate identity really the quintessence of an organisation? What's more important, a strong corporate culture or strong corporate identity, and why? So in conclusion, it is important to have a clear idea of what information is important and relevant to you and make a list of what you are going to search for in your readings. Read purposely and proactively. Okay, let's look at point 2. You don't have to read everything. Not everything on the reading list, and certainly not every line and word or every page, or every chapter in a book. Let's look at your reading lists in more detail. Here is a typical reading list. It's a little bit intimidating to say the least, but believe me when I say you should not read everything on this list. But there are definitely some clues. Firstly, certain things are starred. There are some journals. Journal articles can be a quicker read and offer more of an overview on certain key aspects of the subject. Some of the books have the word handbook or guide in their title. These might provide a nice overview of the subject so you can increase your overall understanding. What about whole books? Am I supposed to read the whole thing? Well, the short answer is no. But if you have time, you may want to get this out of the library and have a skim through. See if it has an introduction or concluding chapter, and if you have time, read this through. But also, let's think back to the lecture outline we were looking at. Remember some of the reading goals we came up with before? This book here, from the title, looks like it will be especially relevant, so this might be another good one to look at. Okay, point 3 now. So now we know you don't necessarily need to read everything on the reading list. But when you have selected something to read, it is important that the reading is done strategically. One way to tackle your reading strategically is to think about the difference between exploratory and dedicated reading. Exploratory reading allows you to summarize a text, getting a general appreciation of it. This can help you to decide whether or not to read in more depth. So when conducting exploratory reading, things you should focus on include getting acquainted with the structure of the text, working out what the author's approach is, investigating their conclusion or findings and results first, and helping you to summarize their arguments and make careful decisions about whether this article, book, chapter, whatever you're looking at, requires closer reading or not. All of this you do before you begin diving into the detail, so that as much as possible you avoid dedicating time and energy into reading a text closely, only to find by the end of it, it wasn't really useful or relevant to you. So let's look at the type or structure of the text first. This is about digging for clues about the structure, about the text before you begin to read. You need to understand the way the text is organised. So for books, is there a table of contents, chapters, parts, a preface? For journal articles, how is the information presented? Are there headings, subheadings? Is there a methodology, a conclusion? For chapters that are isolated out of books, Is there an introduction, a conclusion chapter of the book, or even a review or the book flap text? If a text is particularly dense or confusingly laid out, then in the worst case, you can skim the first sentence of each paragraph. Next, let's look at the author's approach. Different texts serve different purposes. Is the author presenting an argument? Are they developing a theory? Are they reviewing and comparing multiple theories or positions or findings? Are they producing an empirical report? Or if it's not clear, is there any language in the text that gives you clues, such as a statement of purpose? For example, we sought to. And perhaps you can work this out from there. For theory-heavy articles or overviews, it is often useful to make a glossary. What does the author say about this theory model? What does it explain, connect, how does it integrate, how does it relate? What does the author consider to be the assumptions of this theory? How does the author say the theory can be tested and falsified? Then the author's conclusions. Remember, this isn't fiction. You do not have to read the text in a set order. So you can investigate the author's conclusions and research findings first, before you decide to read in any depth. That's where you'll have a clear picture of where the argument ends. What does the author conclude? What is the finality of the propositions? What is the outcome of the experiment? What is their opinion on the debate? If you don't find any obvious conclusions, decide for yourself what is the most important main point to take away from this piece. Make a note and cross-check. Are multiple conclusions from other sources that you've read consistent with this conclusion? And if not, why not? Still unclear? Then go back and read the introduction and or the abstract. Remember, exploratory reading is never a waste of time. It generates a summary of key ideas, a means to set further reading goals, a basis to decide whether or when to read in more depth, and it also helps to set a foundation to listen to a lecture or attend a seminar. Let's look at dedicated reading next. So dedicated reading is only done after exploratory reading is performed first. Dedicated reading is about knowing the text rather than knowing of the text. Through dedicated reading, you should be able to describe the work accurately and in detail, and also, crucially, understand its strengths, weaknesses, and potential applications. So you know what you think of the text and what questions, comments, or conclusions it generates for you. Remember, you must explore first. How you do this is up to you. You could, for example, make a map or a summary. Then, prioritize the parts, chapters, sections of the text. Even with dedicated reading, you can still skip what is less important. Then read. Be sure you understand the sentences. Start with the important sentences in the important parts first. This is what many people do on the first page of the first article. If you need to, rewrite it for yourself. Translate it, perhaps start your own dictionary. If you get stuck on a sentence, try to go back to the last place where you felt clear and read again. At the end of your dedicated reading, you should now have an exploration summary of the text overall, some answers to your reading goals that you set right at the very beginning. You'll have notes on the priority sections. You'll have made a note of any questions you now have from reading the text, and you should be able to now formulate your own reflections on that text, what you thought its strengths and weaknesses were, what questions you now have, how this connects to other reading you've done, and where and what you think you'll look at next. Okay, let's look now at taking notes. Notes are not about volume, so good note taking does not mean that you sit there writing out pages and pages. Instead, they are about how effective you will find them when you return to them later on. Now, there are multiple note-taking techniques. Reading without taking some form of notes is not effective. It is highly unlikely that you will retain the information by reading so passively. Reading needs to be an active process, and part of that activity comes from taking notes. And we're not talking about simply highlighting. All that results in is a pretty coloured piece of paper. There are multiple ways to take notes. Mind maps, pattern notes, linear notes, the Cornell method, all have their relative benefits depending on your needs, so do try and experiment with as many as possible. Because you need to find a style that works for you. Crucially, the notes also need to make sense when you return to them later. But the fundamentals of what your notes should contain remain the same, and this is what we'll look at next. Remember though, this is just a quick summary of note-taking. For a more detailed discussion on taking notes, see our Make Notes section on the LSE Life Moodle page. So let's look at these note-taking essentials in more detail. Put simply, all notes should focus on what the author says, what I have to say, and how this is all relevant. So what the author says could be presented in a number of ways. How does Jones define X? What examples does Jones use? What are the types of X that Jones identifies? What are the main points of Jones's argument? What is the bottom line of their argument? What I have to say. Don't forget this crucial part of your note-taking. How effectively are Jones's ideas evidenced? Am I convinced by his ideas? What are the limitations or flaws in the evidence? Am I surprised by Jones's position? Do I agree? Do I disagree? If I could meet with Jones, what would I ask the author about? And lastly, how is this relevant? How does this concur with or contradict other positions I've read? What are the implications of that? What are the alternatives to this view? Which bits of Jones's work support my argument for an essay? Or how does this fit in with my own ideas and beliefs about the subject? So there you have it, 3 easy to remember essentials that your reading notes should contain. Okay, so you've made those notes on your reading, which is great, but how are you planning to keep those notes organised so that weeks later you can come back to them and find exactly what you need? How do you stay organised? Well, it's important to pick a method at the start of term and try to stick to it throughout. Organise your readings and notes clearly, perhaps week by week, module by module, and then by topic, which helps you to find the information you need quickly. You could also try dating your notes to make the right information more obvious. And consider using a reference management tool. The library regularly runs advice sessions to help you make the most of tools like EndNote, Mendeley or Zotero. Or you could simply create your own system with index cards, a Google Doc or paper files. Okay, point 6, the benefits of collaboration. Ideally, reading should not just be something you do completely alone. Working with others can help you to get through more readings as well as finding out others' reading strategies and approaches. Working together, you can do many of the things we've discussed in this video. You can formulate reading goals together. You might, as a group, divide up and analyse past exam questions for that week. You can divvy up the readings and share your notes. Another really helpful thing to do is to try to teach what you have learned to someone else. This helps you to remember and makes you realise what you know and what you don't know. You can also discuss your readings. Even just simple discussion can be very helpful. Why not try having a discussion with your classmates? You could suggest as a group that you hold a weekly Zoom chat after the seminar to all get together and reflect on the readings. Or try discussing the readings with your lecturer or GTA. Don't be intimidated about doing this. Students often don't take advantage of office hours, but this is a great way to use your lecturer to bounce ideas off them and test out your theories. Okay, lastly, where can I get more help? Well, LSE Life is here to help you throughout your studies at LSE. We support students with all aspects of their academic, personal and professional development, and across the academic year we offer one-to-one support tailored to you, as well as workshops and webinars on multiple topics that will help you succeed as a student. To find out more, go to our webpage and sign up for our weekly emailed updates. Then you'll be the first to know about our upcoming webinars, workshops and one-to-one sessions, as well as new digital resources to help with your studies. But that's not all. If you're watching this, chances are you've come across this via our Moodle page. But if you haven't, now is the perfect time to log into Moodle and look for LSE Life in your course list or search for us and join. You'll find multiple useful videos, slides, worksheets and much more on all aspects of studying at LSE that will help you throughout your time here. So do make use of this valuable resource. Okay, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching and we hope you found it helpful.